In amongst the tenements, garbage piles up. At night it's a haven for rats. The buildings themselves are dilapidated, their crumbling stairways haunted by drug addicts and their dealers. But this is the European Union, and Eugene and his family have nowhere else to go. They're going to have to find somewhere, though. They're being evicted for not paying the rent. The Ferentari ghetto is home to thousands, 60% of them Roma, and it's a suburb of the Romanian capital, Bucharest. Not far away, Valeriu Nicolai is listening to the particular problems of another group of Roma. He tries to help. Many of them lack proper documents, without which they can't work and their children can't go to school. Elena, who, like Valerio, is Roma, is a qualified teacher, and she's trying to bring education that will help others escape from the self-perpetuating poverty. It's an uphill struggle in the face of anti-Roma feeling among other Romanians.
Always, even if there are many positive role models of Roma, those who struggled and made it into good positions, they always look at the other side and see just the negative parts.
But there are success stories. Mario, for instance, is doing well at school, both academically and at sport.
Yes.
So, what do you do? What sport?
Wrestling.
You're a wrestler?
Yes.
Mario has more chance than the girls of this ghetto, many of whom end up in prostitution. This woman is still mourning the death of her 17-year-old daughter, a prostitute presumably murdered by a client. The police told Valerio they don't have the resources to investigate, especially as the victim was a prostitute. They've been present, though, on the 4 occasions when these shacks were bulldozed. They're not supposed to be here, although their occupants have nowhere else to go. We need work, says this angry Roma man, but that's only a partial solution at best. Many of the children are undersized, even underdeveloped, their mothers old before their time. I have 13 children, 42 nephews and 18 great-nephews, boasts this woman. She also has a newborn baby. The houses may be shacks, lacking amenities and in poor condition, but they're clean and the occupants make them as homely as they can. It's not easy. Here in Pangarati, another Bucharest suburb, the roads aren't made up, the houses are in poor condition and the people have very little money. We need better houses and proper jobs, says this father of 5, although he does his best.
I do odd jobs and travel to different places to work.
He too would like more employment to be available and better housing, of course. This man is raising 4 children on his own. His wife left him. All he has is one small, overcrowded room. He's a qualified mechanic, but in the current economic climate, there's even less work to be had, and he can't afford essential repairs.
I need help to finish the house and find a job.
These are the sorts of problems brought to Valeriu Nicolai all the time. For him, education proved a route out of the spiral of deprivation, but he sympathizes with those still trapped in it.
Those guys live on something like less than 2 euros per day. The people do not understand how bad the situation is. Of course you have rich Roma, of course you have Roma who do not respect the law, and you have you have Roma intellectuals, Roma who hide their identities and so on. But we have a very large proportion, I do believe it's over 30%, of people who live in really abysmal conditions.
300 kilometers from Bucharest, this suburb of Craiova in southwestern Romania is home to 28,000 Roma. Most people here don't welcome outsiders. But this is the home of a true European. Vasily Velcu is the leader of the Roma people over a very large part of the region. Some people call him here the king of the gypsies. Self-educated, he now teaches young people the Romani language, and he's writing a book on Roma history. He's also collected a huge archive of pictures, videos and writings of Roma traditions. But his origins were very humble.
I was born into a family of thieves. Yes, I swear it's true. I swear my mother was one of the best thieves. I'm not ashamed about this. You never know what will happen. From the best you get the worst, and from the worst you can get the best. It's nothing to be ashamed of. If we lose our identity, we are nothing.
He's ended up here, trying to keep Roma traditions alive as best he can. By Roma standards, he's a wealthy man, surrounded by his supporters and his computers. But it wasn't always like this.
I was travelling with my mother through a village in a horse and cart, and we stole. Not much, chickens and poultry. And if we found a house where nobody was in, my mother would break in and look around until she found money or gold. She never took clothes. Usually she would target people with money, the priests, the shepherds, and alcohol makers.
Now he preserves the old traditions and tries to solve the problems of those who regard him as their leader, even if they often argue with him. This is the village of Okolna, 68 kilometers from the nearest town. Here the residents face a lot of difficulties. They often have to wait for their social security payments. Some find temporary agricultural work in a non-Roma village 10 kilometers away for part of the year, earning around €8 a day. Only about 50 people here own any land. This is a long way from Brussels, and it's a place unknown to EU decision makers.
The European Union should help us. It should put serious pressure on the Romanian Parliament, the Romanian President, the government, and responsible ministries to do the same as you are doing, coming here and seeing these disadvantaged areas where our Roma from Romania live. Responsible committees should come and see the situation of these children who have nothing to live on.
There's no clean water, the well is polluted and causes illnesses. This woman blames the water for her skin condition, which is fairly common here, although nobody can afford medical care. In any case, the nearest doctor is in the next village. Most of the houses are very basic and not very big. Even so, they can be a mixed blessing. The Ungureanu family were told that as they'd managed to put a roof over their heads, they've no need for child benefit payments anymore.
We have just the social welfare. If they cut it, we will die of hunger. We don't have pensions or other allowances. They even cut the children allocations. This is the money we have to support our children. For clothes, for food, for health. Only for medical treatment, we would have to pay €23 if they get sick.
See? Poverty. Beans, look here, just beans.
Not even fried, just soaked beans.
That's how the children have to eat it.
There are a great many Roma children living in these conditions, with too little food and too little access to education. The only way out.
Life is hard with all the children, with only a house like this. 3 children in 2 rooms we share with my father and my mother-in-law. It's not right, we have no work. We only get €75 a month each in welfare payments. Basescu says welfare will be cut to €65 per family per month. How can 4 or 5 people live on this? We are that poor.
The rural Roma poor have problems, but things are often no better in the more urban areas. At Roma-Lapalor, on the outskirts of Craiova, some 700 people are housed in abandoned barracks. Hygiene facilities are very limited. Again, the residents complain that the water is contaminated. In this case, possibly by industrial pollution. Vasily Velcu hears the familiar complaints. Yes, he knows the EU wants to eradicate poverty. It's just that there's not much to show for it here. The television is the one universal luxury. The real key to escape is through education. Christiana Grigori won a Fulbright scholarship and is studying at Vanderbilt University in the United States. This is her first visit home for some time to see her parents and her grandmother. Her family played down their Roma ethnicity, the best way to survive discrimination. It's only now that Christiana is reclaiming her true identity.
I grew up in a mixed school, and because I never talked with my colleagues about being a Roma, I always hide that. I was so afraid that my colleagues will find out about that. It was a very interesting moment when one of my colleagues told me that, I was wondering if you're a Roma or not because of the way you look, you have a darker skin. And I asked, one of the professors, and the professor said that I'm not.
Denial helped Christiana survive and thrive. Now she wants to help less fortunate Roma escape from poverty too. Here on the outskirts of Craiova, 12 families live in derelict buildings without amenities, for one of them with fatal results.
We were evicted. When we were put here, the local administration promised us this is temporary, till they build some new social housing. We had electricity for a while after moving here, then they cut it off because people didn't have the money to pay. We pleaded to have the electricity back and promised we will pay. They lied to us for 2 weeks, saying they will do it. I had a small baby, so I had to get electricity from somewhere, so I stole it. After a while they came and cut it off again. When they cut it, I had gone to work and my wife lit a candle so she could feed the babies. She turned around and a fire had started in the house. There was my mother, my wife and 2 children. They couldn't get out. We have metal grills on the windows. I went to the local administration to get more help. Yes, my wife died and my mother was badly burnt.
The families still live in the same soot-blackened room with little prospect of early rehousing. Most of Romania's Roma are integrated. They put up with the abuse and intolerance and become, effectively, invisible. But for too many, this is day-to-day reality, a grinding poverty from which escape is difficult. It can be done, but it will take change on both sides, properly targeted assistance and more effort on the part of the Roma themselves.
We as Roma have a huge responsibility, but also the majorities in the European Union has a huge responsibility. At this moment we don't have any coherent strategic approach towards solving the Roma inclusion. So I think we have the potential to solve it. There's lots of good improvements, but it is still very disturbing that most of the European funds used to tackle poverty never reach Roma communities you saw.
The Romanian government has launched some innovative schemes to improve infrastructure, create jobs and greater self-sufficiency for Roma communities and ensure the people have papers. But with so much anti-Roma feeling, the good intentions aren't being realised on the ground. Even in the EU's year for combating poverty and social exclusion, many remain poor and excluded. For the Roma, the EU's hidden nation, the road ahead looks long and bleak.